On a cold winter's day, the air seemed to freeze as a frail boy stood before the judge. He was accused of stealing a loaf of bread from a store to feed his starving elderly mother. The store owner demanded punishment, while the boy remained silent, head bowed, eyes swollen with tears, and he choked out, "I had no choice, my mother is hungry." The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. The judge stared deeply into the boy's red, tear-streaked eyes, his gaze both stern and burdened with thought. He stood and spoke with a voice that resonated like a warning bell. "Stealing is wrong, and no one can justify such an act. But when a child steals to feed a starving mother, it is not just this boy who is at fault. We, from those in power, to the welfare system, education, and every individual in society, are all responsible. This is a failure of society as a whole." He then pulled out $10 from his pocket and placed it on the table. "This is my fine for allowing this to happen," he continued. "I will fine everyone in this room, including myself, $10 each. This money will help the boy and his mother get a meal, instead of continuing in poverty." The eyes of the room followed the judge in shock as he continued, his voice sharp like an accusation. "The shop owner is also fined $100 for turning a hungry child over to the police instead of showing compassion. If the fine is not paid within the hour, his shop will be closed." The room fell silent, except for the judge's voice, ringing out like a bell of awakening. When a child steals due to hunger, it is not just that child who is wrong. It is the shame of all of us, of an indifferent community, of a failed system. The boy cried, tears streaming down his face, both from shame and from the feeling of being understood. The judge stood tall, scanned the room, then turned and walked out of the courtroom, leaving behind a space filled with silence, regret, and responsibility. His final words were like a sharp blade cutting deeply into each heart, reminding them that indifference is the greatest sin. This story is not just a lesson in compassion and social responsibility but also deeply illustrates the law of cause and effect and the power of intention. Beneath the conventional moral surface, it vividly shows the strength of thought, the starting point and the shaping force of all human actions. As the Buddha taught, mind precedes all things. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. Intentional actions, whether good or bad, will bring corresponding results. The story does not just focus on right or wrong judgment but also awakens a collective responsibility, reminding us that every thought and action, no matter how small, has the potential to deeply impact our lives and those around us. The story begins with a compassionate and loving thought. The boy steals bread to save his mother from starvation. While the boy's action is legally wrong, the thought rooted in filial piety touches the judge's heart. It is the judge's compassionate understanding that transforms the courtroom from a place of judgment to a profound lesson, spreading values of love and social responsibility. Looking deeper, we see that thought, or intention, is the root of all actions. As the Buddha said, mind precedes all things. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. The boy's kind thoughts, even if his actions did not meet standards, brought empathy and awakening to the community. In contrast, the shopkeeper's act of reporting the boy, although lawful, reflected a lack of compassion, causing harm to society. The consequences of these actions clearly demonstrate the law of cause and effect. The boy faces judgment but plants the seed of compassion in others. On the other hand, the shopkeeper faces societal criticism and the torment of his own conscience. This shows that the intention, or karma of the mind, is the determining factor of good or bad actions and their consequences, leaving the lesson that all thoughts subtly shape our destiny. In Buddhist teachings, karma and its results are core principles that govern every aspect of life. Karma is made up of three components: body actions, speech, words, and mind thoughts. Among them, the karma of the mind is central, as it serves as the root that guides all actions and speech. Each thought is like a seed being planted, and its nature will determine the fruit that is harvested. A good thought, even if the action is not perfect, will still lead to a positive result due to its pure intention and sincerity. Conversely, negative thoughts, even if not actualized into actions, can still cause suffering for oneself and others. Understanding the role of mind leads the way, we see that controlling the karma of the mind is the first step towards living a meaningful life. A positive thought can spread and create a positive influence, while a negative thought, if unchecked, can burn like fire, causing harm. Therefore, to lead a peaceful life, we need to nurture good thoughts and keep our minds clear. Like a small fire that can warm, but also destroy if it gets out of control, our thoughts must be properly guided to avoid creating bad karma and to bring long-term benefits. An important aspect of Buddhist teachings is the emphasis on transforming thoughts. The Buddha not only helps us recognize the nature of mental karma but also shows us how to adjust and change it. Mindfulness, one of the core methods, is a tool to help us recognize our thoughts as they arise. Practicing mindfulness allows us to distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong, so we can stop negative thoughts in their tracks and nurture positive ones. Through mindfulness, we not only avoid mistakes but also create opportunities to plant good seeds in our hearts, leading to a peaceful and happy life. Looking at life, we see that all happiness and suffering arise from the mind. Mental karma is not just the cause of actions but also the foundation that shapes each person's life. Understanding this, we can begin the journey of transformation from within, starting with the smallest thoughts. As the Buddha taught, to conquer 1,000 armies is not as great as conquering oneself, and in this self-conquest, we find true peace and happiness. Finally, let me share a meaningful story. In a small village, there were two houses facing each other. One was a small temple where an elderly monk would chant and strike the gong, hoping to escape the cycle of birth and death. Across from it was the house of a prostitute, where the sounds of laughter and revelry from her clients echoed daily. Their lives were opposites, yet destiny had prepared an unexpected ending. The monk took pride in his pure life, despising the girl, thinking she would suffer in hell for her sins. Meanwhile, the girl respected him and wished she could live like him. Over time, both died and stood before King Yama. When King Yama announced that the monk would fall into hell, while the girl would be reborn as a human, the monk was furious. King Yama explained that, although the monk held the form of a monk, his mind was filled with judgment and condemnation of others. On the other hand, although the girl lived in sin, her heart was always inclined toward goodness, yearning for a better life. The monk was shocked to realize that true practice was not just about chanting but also about keeping the mind pure. But now, it was too late. He had to pay the price for his negative thoughts. Dear friends, today's video ends here. If you have any comments or feelings, please leave your comments below the video. Now, goodbye and see you in the next videos.